Hello everyone and welcome to QuiltNCode. I am in my design studio right now and I am going to do the Hankie challenge today. And of course, everything has changed. So the whole point of the Hankie challenge is to figure out what to do with a bunch of hankies that I was given by a wonderful customer of mine. And she handed them to me and she said, I want you to deal with these hankies and I want you to do it live. And I went, okay, so here is the design process. And so we have been going through several weeks of trying to figure out what we were wanting to do with these hankies. And I thought I was set with several parts of it. And then realized that I wasn't yesterday. So I got to spend several hours in my sewing space right here and just sort of hanging out and doing my own thing. It was nice and quiet, which was so wonderful because last week we had camp and it was not quiet. But those children were able to create notebook covers, pillowcases, little stuffed animals, a skirt. I mean, we had it all. The purpose of that sewing camp was for them to follow their ideas and learn how to do their designing things. So the same thing I'm doing right here online, I was doing with them all week last week. All right, so here's the deal. Totally switched gears yesterday. So here's where I thought I was going to be putting this thing together today and starting to do some piping, and well, things changed. And so I am no longer going to say we are finishing this project ever because it may never be done at this point. I hope you have a nice, warm, or cool beverage with you this morning. I am still drinking my coffee. It has a wonderful Bridgerton mixed berry creamer in here. Oh, just smell that. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to put that to the side, and I have my sewing machine ready to go and my cutters over here ready to go. But before I do that, I want to show you the outline of what the project is. Okay, so Lanny's going to switch to small camera, and we have the two big parts are going to be the butterflies. Okay, so we have butterflies for that. And then here is the finished, finally, the finished center, these blocks right here. Okay, and so you can tell, oh boy, she really did change things up. Yes, I did. If you have been watching, I totally changed things up yesterday. And so I changed things up on an inspiration I got from another quilt. Actually, it was a stripology quilt that we've been doing. And then another quilt that I have done in the past. And I went, oh, I wonder how that would work. And so this is the new block right here. And I was able to recycle some of the old ones that I had created. And so I recycled those and put them into the new block. And so I just wanted to demonstrate how I created this new block. This is the easiest way of creating a block. I did an entire queen quilt that's on my bed using this technique. Okay, so what I did was whenever you're doing this, you want to make sure you're an inch larger than the finished block, okay? And so all my blocks here are going to be 3.5 inches. So I made sure that the block that I'm using is starting at 4.5. Okay, and so I have a whole bunch of 4.5 inch blocks. And I can take more than one at a time. I could do 4 or 5, which is what I did with my other quilt. I actually used 10-inch blocks. I used a 10-inch square, 10-inch layer cake, Moda layer cake, and I did this entire technique, and I was layering 6 at a time to do this technique. All right, so I am going to layer, at this point in time, I am only layering 2, and I am going to start by placing my stripology, because y'all know that this is the only tool I use at this point in time. So I'm placing my stripology so that my zero line, oops, I want to be on the other side, so that my zero line is crossing the tips. And so I actually laid, when I did this originally, I'm going to move this a little closer so y'all can see a little bit better. When I did this originally, I just used a regular ruler and would go an inch over using my cutter, or my mat, and an inch over using my mat, okay? And so you could do that. You could easily do that. So And that's how I did it for years. Now I don't have any other cutter but the Stripology, just because I'm nuts and crazy. Okay, so I am going to line up my 0 line with my corners here. And you can see how I can even bring the triangle here in line with that triangle right there. Okay. And then I am going to go over a whole inch. Okay. I'm going to have a 2-inch section in the center here. And so actually I'm going to do the smaller ones because I have 2-inch already cut. And so I kind of want to have a mixture of 1-inch and 2-inch. So I'm going to do the 1-inch. So I'm going to do a 1/2 inch here. And then you can either turn your mat or you can simply turn your, I don't think that cut. It did cut. We're okay. We're okay. I'm just going to have to go back with some scissors. I don't think I pressed very hard. Okay, so now I'm doing the same thing over here. I'm lining up with my 0 line. Just like that. And I'm going to go over a 1/2 inch. That one I did. That one should not have any problems. We'll find out in just a second. And so I have no idea what was going on there. So I'm just going to turn this over again and do it again. It's still early. It's still early. Haven't had enough coffee. That's probably what it is. Gonna line everything back up. Just like that. There we go. I felt that one. Ah, look at that. It's a little bit off, but that's okay. That's the reason why we get square in the end, and that's why we keep it an inch larger than what we had. Okay, so I have these beautiful pieces here. Now I have noticed that with this technique and with what I'm doing, I am able to get 2 of these. I need to have an entire row of my lace in order to get 1 of these. And so I need 2 for each block, right? That's why I've cut 2. And so I'm going to need 2 rows of this. And so that's really, really important to know, so that, because right here I have these 2 and I won't be able to use them because we'll only get 1 block out of it. And so that's why I did not rip those out. They will be ripped out later to go somewhere else. But I didn't do it yet. Okay, so I have 2 that are the 1-inch, and then over here I've already cut. You can see the difference in the 2-inch. So there's the 2-inch right there. Okay, and you can go over there. You can stay over there. All right, excellent. All right, so the way I do this, and there were some tricks that I found out yesterday as I was doing this. I was like, ooh, I want to mention this as I'm doing this. All right, so I am going to cut my strip of lace out. If I knew I was going to be doing this, I don't want to use this ruler. Let's use this one. If I knew I was going to be doing this, I was going to be doing several of them, and then, and waiting. So in other words, I was cutting a whole bunch out and then waiting, and I would treat my fabric. I haven't needed to treat it because I'm using it right away. And so otherwise I would put a little bit of freight check, that type of thing on there. And so I have discovered that I like to do this really small so that I can keep my 1/4 inch as close to that lace as possible. That has been helpful too. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my triangles right here, and I am going to put the lace like that on the inside of the triangle, and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch. That way I already have it, okay? And so we're going to take that over to the sewing machine. And this is where I kind of like, oh, this is a trick y'all kind of need to see, because I was really struggling with this particular, there's like really dark over here on the sewing machine today. I am using a leader. And so the reason why I'm doing that, and what I mean by a leader is that I'm simply going to take and put this in. I don't need to put in that much, and go ahead and get my stitching started. The reason why is because I've been having some issues, and I have been pinning to a little bit because I want to make sure that this guy stays at his 1/4 of an inch, and I've been having some issues with things shifting on me. And so you could glue it, you could pin it, there's all sorts of things, but this leader allows us to get in here, and then it just moves it. Once I started using the leader, I wasn't having any problems with it sucking the lace back down into the machine, which is what it'll do. All right, and now I am going to bring this across just like this. And then I can bring in the next triangle right behind it. And I have found that the 2 triangles fit perfectly on this. The lace fits perfectly. One side of lace fits perfectly on the 2 triangles. Now, I can go ahead and do a couple more, and I really should, but that's okay. And just keep chain piecing, and that way I don't have to keep pulling out my leader, but it's, I will show you. I'm just going to demonstrate what I'm doing today. All right, and now I can bring this back over here. And I'm simply going to cut that. I want to see on the other side where I'm at. All right, and so you can see that I am cutting the lace there, but it's going to get all taken care of in just a second. So I don't need to worry about I don't need to worry about any fray check yet. Okay, so the next thing I did was I took my middle piece and I am placing that just like that. And I don't know if you can see it, but you can sort of see how my stitching at that 1/4 of an inch is kind of scant. Ooh, I need to be back here. Okay, it's kind of scant like that. And so I want to make sure it's covering it. So I can just move my needle position over. And then when I put this on top and move that position, I like to start over here so that I can see how my triangle is lining up there. And when I move my needle position over, I'm going to catch all that. All right, and then I am going to pin just a little bit to make sure this guy stays on there. While I was stitching yesterday, I had, it wasn't with this project. I was trying to complete some projects. You know, every now and then you just sort of have to get some of those UFOs done. And so I was working on a bag that was quite thick. Managed to sew my finger into the machine. I've never done that before. It was a very interesting experience sewing my finger into the machine. Surprisingly, it didn't even bleed all that much, but boy, it was an interesting experience getting my finger out of the machine. I was like all by myself here, and so I couldn't scream, and I was like, okay, this is, you know, there's no one here to help me. I gotta figure this one out on my own. It was pretty funny. It didn't even hurt that bad. I was just like, okay, I am like stuck now. So, you know, I have had, yeah, anyway, it was a pretty funny experience. I guess I should say I got lucky because it really wasn't that bad. My poor son, when I was relating it to him when I got home, was like, he thought I had gotten stuck in the long arm. That would have been a little bit more tricky all by myself, because the long arm would have been a little more tricky. And my husband's back there going, yeah, I'm glad you didn't do that. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with most of it. I'm not happy with this section up here. And so what I really want is to make sure that I go a little bit deeper there. And so I am simply going to put my pin there, knowing that I want to come back in there, and I am going to give myself a bit more of a seam allowance. I can do that with this because I know that I am going to square this up. And so I can play with this until I feel like I have this just perfect. It's going to go this way. Until I have this just perfect. And so now I am super happy. Okay, so I am going to do the same thing. Hold on. Let me get my camera over here so you can sort of see what I'm doing. I want to go ahead and iron a little bit because it will make it with this little 1-incher a little bit easier to get everything under the machine. And you could use a pressing bar or whatever, but I think that just ironing it is going to give us the effect that I want, and I didn't have any problems yesterday. And you can sort of see how on one side, well, you could earlier, you could see how on one side I was a little bit off. That you guys, once you square this up, it's not going to matter. And so that's why you're using that whole inch, to give you a little bit of grace and leeway so that you can be able to do that. Now, if I were doing this whole quilt, I would have chain pieced it all, and therefore I wouldn't have to move my needle over every time. So just keep that in mind, is that I've moved that needle position over. And I don't have to go back and forth. So there we go. Seems like a little bit of a high maintenance project, but it's worth it to make sure that I don't get, so that the look that I want is there. All right. So now we're going to turn you over like that, bring you over here. And then I started by ironing from the back because I know that I want my seam allowance to go toward the inside. And that just sort of helped when I was doing the little ones yesterday. The big ones, totally easy because you have a little bit more fabric to deal with. And so, yeah, see these little guys? They just want to hop right on up. There we go. Okay, and so now I can take this piece and I can square it, and everything is going to look absolutely gorgeous. I am doing a 3.5-inch square, so I'm using the center part. And then this is where you get to decide what this thing looks like, because you have plenty of room on the outside to trim. I want to make sure that that white line is going through the center of my piece, and it doesn't look like it's going through the center at times. And so you kind of got to adjust it up, adjust it down, and then, but this is the main part that I want to have. This is the main part that I want to be so pretty. So is to make sure that that right there is what looks really awesome. And so now I can take this and square that up. Other side is a little bit easier because now I have my horizontals. No idea if you can see this. Hopefully Lanny's going to tell me if you can't. And so I am going back to looking to make sure that center line is down the center right there. My horizontals are good, and I can cut. And now I am so excited because I think that just looks so much better, and it gives me more opportunity to get some more lace in there than what I had. Or I guess this is crocheting. It gets more crocheting in there than I had. It also gives me an opportunity to sort of have more control over where my lace is laying and that type of thing. I will have to go back before I put this all in together. And I will put in a stitch going down here with some clear thread, just to make sure these guys hold down, because it is a table runner and we want to make sure that it's going to hold up over wear. Okay. And then the other thing I was going to do today was I was simply going to show you how I am, now that I've gotten this down. Of course, my 3D elements are not in there yet. Of course, you know, that's how I am. Like I said, I have been saying for 3 weeks that this project is ready to go together. Ha! I was lying, completely lying. I don't normally lie to you, but I was completely lying. And so I am going to put a couple of these together and show you how I can, how this looks once you put it together. So first thing I'm going to do is,
Mom says it looks good.
it does, right? I am very, very pleased. And so next week, I have no idea where we're going, guys. It will depend on what happens when I come in here and what is floating my fancy that day. Okay, so to do these, I make sure that I have my pieces matching right there. And then I am cutting this down just a little bit. So I've opened that up. And if you haven't seen this part, you can go back a couple weeks, because I did this a couple weeks ago. So I'm making my window blocks and putting these together like this. And I really need to do a pattern for you guys when I have a few minutes, maybe tomorrow while I'm in the car. So here we go. Take the camera with me. Thank you. As I was getting ready for today, I was like, oh, I was putting a whole bunch of them together and then realized I was putting the wrong color together. And I was like, really? It's a Monday. Oh, and that's the wrong seam allowance. Okay, no worries. So I will simply just, well, I don't know. It might be okay. Let me see if it's okay. We'll find out. If it's okay, we'll just let it go. 3.5. I'm going to get 3.5 out of here. Whoops. Bring the camera with me. 3.5, 3.5. Yeah, I'm going to be all right. Okay. And because I used my pin to mark that area, that is just absolutely gorgeous. Let's see if this one is the same. Pretty, pretty cool. And that is because I'm using that pin to get in there. Now let's see if I've got 3.5 inches though. Yeah, I'm a little off right there. So I think I am going to redo it. That's the nice thing about chain piecing, is doing everything at the same time. So, well, okay. But I am notorious for like doing 10 of them and then realizing that I didn't do the seam allowance. You can just ask Will. There's a whole quilt downstairs that isn't done because he didn't change the seam allowance. And he has been dragging his for putting it back together. So it's like, come on, you can do this. You gotta pull those things apart and start over again. It's worth it. Good thing he doesn't watch my lives. It's a gorgeous quilt too, so I'm sort of like, come on, gotta get this thing done. Much better. So if I want to square this, I'm going to use that line right there to make sure that I'm in the right place. And I want to make sure that I've got plenty out there. See, look at how gorgeous that is. Aw. Or I could use my Stripology. I'm surprised I can even do it with this thing. Lately, I haven't been able to do regular trimming down. There we go. Okay, so now I have my 2 blocks, and then I can put them with these gorgeous blocks right here. And so the way it goes is the little thingies go in the center. And then I have been mixing them up. So I have been going either that way or I have been going that way. So let me just double check. I have 2 going toward the inside. Where's my other one? I know I have another one around here. Oh, there we go. And then 2. Okay, so I have 1. Yeah, 2 going through the. So I need to go this way. I know you have no idea what I just said. So these are going that direction versus going toward the inside like that. So good. Okay, cool. So, and then I'm just going to put it together like a regular 4 patch. Bring the camera with me. Feel free to pin if that makes you more comfortable. I like to keep everything laid out the way I want it before I stitch it. That way I'm not gonna mess anything up as I do it. All right, and then last thing is I can put, that one's the bottom one, that one's the top one, put these 2 together and the block is done. And so I'm nesting my little seam right there. You can iron at this point, you know, and then when I do nest seams, I usually pin. So I'll pin on one side and on the other to make sure that they'll stay down. And then if it's a really long piece, I certainly, or if I'm having problems, like let's say this piece is a little bit bigger than the other one, then I'll make sure everybody's lined up and then stick her in the machine. This is lined up perfectly, so it's not that big a deal, but that gives you some ideas. If you do have fabric that's a little bit, or a piece that is just a little bit baggy on one side, it happens. Put that side toward the feed dogs. The feed dogs pick up much more fabric. And so they help to ease that extra fabric into your block. All right, cool. And so that's what she looks like. And now I'll press her nice and neat, and I have 4 done. I only have 2 more of these. And then I have my, we'll get back to those next week, my 3D element things that are still coming together. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna let Lainey come back up here to me. Thank you so much for watching. So today we talked about how I changed the design of the block. I now have 4 of these done, guys. I'm getting there. So I have 10 blocks total that I need to do of these. 4 of them are going to be the 3D elements. So I have 2 more of these to go. I already have these done. Okay, for the most part, they need something else. I haven't figured out what that is, but it's going to be something. It might be a hand stitched element. I am totally going in that direction. And so next week when we come together, I have no idea. I keep saying that we're going to finish this project, but something is going to change between now and next Monday that is going to make me want to change something else or add something else or do something else. And that is just the way the design process goes. And so if you have enjoyed watching this process, please click like, subscribe, share, all that other stuff. Comment in the things below that you're enjoying what you're watching, because the comments help the algorithm. And Yeah, and then Thursday, come on back because I am still doing more with the stripology on Thursday. We're actually making a notebook cover. So I will use this stripology to finish an actual project. Okay, yes, we'll do the best we can. Okay, I'll have most of it done before you get here so that we can just do the stripology stuff. So we will do that on Thursday. And so I will see you guys at noon on Thursday. Otherwise, have a great week. Make sure you like, subscribe, and we'll see you then. Bye.